Resident Evil 2 is the 2019 remake of the 1998 game of the same name. The game follows Leon Kennedy and Claire Redfield as they're thrown into a zombie-infested Raccoon City. They both must investigate what happened at the local police station where Leon was due for his new job, and Claire's brother Chris has disappeared. Now, like I just said, the original version of this game was released in 1998. This era of games was a little bit before my time because I mainly grew up with the PS2 mid-2000s era, and I wouldn't have been allowed to play these games at that age anyways. So I don't have any real nostalgia for the Resident Evil games. I've never played the original and have only played 7 and 8, which are games that I love. So while I've seen the movies and am somewhat aware of the stories in these games, I was going in pretty blind for the most part. This game is presented as a dual story for both Leon and Claire. You play through the story as one of those characters and get character-specific storylines. Then you should replay it as the other character to understand the whole picture. And I did really like this presentation. It gives you the opportunity to go back through some of the same stages to pick up stuff you missed the first time. Now, I did have a good time with this game overall. I know the Resident Evil fanbase can be intense and very particular, so I hope no one gets mad when I say that to me personally, this is just a good game. I know this is a fairly renowned remake, and I can recognize a lot of the impressive stuff here, but I do prefer Biohazard and Village over this game. But I do want to get into what I did like about it. Just from a technical perspective, watching some of the gameplay from the original as compared to this remake, it really is an astounding ground-up reconstruction of that game. The game looks pretty good here and handles well for the most part. I do really like the way that the Resident Evil games presents their inventory. You have limited space, but it never feels like it's unfair with the flexibility it gives you there. I also like the way that a lot of the weapons handled in this game. Most of the guns, especially Claire's grenade launcher, were really satisfying to use and upgrade. I thought the level design for the police station was great. I love the interconnectivity of it and the puzzle solving that you have to do to get through it. I think that's where the level design is at its best throughout the entire game. I played through the first time as Leon, and having to uncover what was in the police station was legitimately suspenseful, and it had moments where I was nervous to see what was around the corner. The horror aspect of this game was pretty solid. The first couple hours I did find to be fairly unnerving. It doesn't work as well on a replay, but there is a good amount of suspense there that I did like. The puzzle solving is also fun, and the exploration aspect of this game and 7 and 8 is one of my favorite things in this franchise. I like that you do need to explore the entire environment, but not everything is so straightforwardly laid out that you can miss stuff as you go through. I thought the performances from Nick Ospelidis and Stephanie Paniseo as Leon and Claire respectively were pretty solid. I did prefer Stephanie's performance because I think it worked for the character a little bit more than Nick's for Leon. I really like Claire as a character. She is a no-nonsense character, but is still compassionate and caring for others. I enjoyed her characterization more than Leon's, who came off a little annoying to me at times. He kind of had that Luke Skywalker in A New Hope vibe to him, in my personal opinion. Another mechanic I thought worked really well was that of Mr. X, a character you can't fight and can only run from for the majority of the game. At a certain point in both main characters' stories, they run into him at the police station, and after that, they are actively chased by him. You can lose him, but he'll still search for you, and you can hear his footsteps when he's nearby, which is a very nice touch. This cat and mouse chase adds a lot of tension to the latter scenes inside the police station, which I think does escalate the story and the gameplay in the right way. And with the exception of the very end, I do think Leon has the better story throughout. I think it's paced better and is more interesting. Him having to track down the T-Virus while uncovering what the Umbrella Corporation did with Ada Wong is entertaining. I think his gameplay is also a little bit more balanced than Claire's, so I did like her more as a character, but preferred his story. Now to get into what I didn't like, one of my main issues was with the way this game handles. You feel so freaking slow in this game. It might be unfair to compare them, but I just came off of replaying both parts 1 and 2 of The Last of Us, and while in those games you can sprint and have a sense of urgency, you can only really jog here. While I know this is done on purpose and is to stay in line with the original game, it does hinder some of the enjoyability of the gameplay for me because I feel so sluggish when I am moving. While I do like the exploration and puzzle solving parts of the gameplay, I do think the progression for these can be a little too confusing on a first playthrough. I found myself wandering around quite a bit as Leon during my first playthrough in the police station because I couldn't figure out where I was supposed to go next. That can entirely be on me, I know. And while I'm not advocating for intense hand-holding, it could have been a little bit more straightforward with what it wants you to do. There is also a very big learning curve between the 7 and 8 installments, The Last of Us, and this game when it comes to enemies. I played the game on the normal mode. Yes, get wrecked, I know, I'm a noob, whatever. But some of the zombies and normal enemies are very difficult to kill. There is a mechanic in play here that makes it easier to play the more conservative you are with your bullets and with the less items you pick up. So if you shoot less and pick up less, you're more likely to take enemies down easier. So you do have to be picky, but it also takes a while to realize that, and I did have to look it up too. I did like the touch of having the same zombies in the same areas if you do not kill them, but fighting overall is a lot less satisfying with the normal weapons like the regular pistols because they feel pretty ineffective. But I did really like the boss sections of this game. I thought those were a lot of fun. I also thought the sections after leaving the police station were a lot less interesting. Everything else is linear and not nearly as expansive or interwoven as the police station, so it's just kind of less compelling when exploration is one of my favorite parts, especially the laboratory section, with the exception of the short sections for Ada Wong and the little girl. I do also think the story overall is just fine. I wasn't super attached to any of the characters here and found it to be a pretty simple story, which isn't bad, but when you hear this game compared to something like The Last of Us, I don't think it comes anywhere close to the storytelling going on there. This is a really solid game, and I can see why people are so into it, especially if you played the original. I'm sure the nostalgia update 21 years later has to be somewhat surreal. I do think the replayability factor does bump this up quite a bit for me. The story is pretty short for both characters. I think both of my playthroughs were right around 6 hours, and there is enough variety going on here in the gameplay where you would want to go back through to see if you'll be more effective this time. So I will be rating the Resident Evil 2 Remake a B. I do think this is a good game, but it pales in comparison to my experience playing Biohazard, especially for the first time, since that was my introduction to the franchise. I am really interested, though, to play the Resident Evil 4 remake. I think that would be a little bit more up my alley than this one. Maybe I'll do a review for that. But what do you guys think? What's your favorite entry in the franchise? Let me know, and I'll be back with another video.